Captain Brian Bews, one of the top skilled pilots within the Royal Canadian Air Force, always knew he wanted to fly. In June of 2010, while training for the Alberta International Airshow, his CF-18 Hornet fighter suffered a mechanical failure while performing a complicated maneuver that he had done many times before. But as seen in footage taken that day, it looked like this would be his final flight. However, Bews would not go down without a fight, and with quick thinking skills that are only second nature to the best pilots in the world, he attempted to stabilize the aircraft. Still, nothing was working. Flying only a few hundred feet above the surface, Bews only had 4 seconds to do something before crashing into the ground. Caught on camera. In mid-2010, pilot Captain Brian Bews of the Royal Canadian Air Force's 425th Squadron, 3rd Wing, boarded his trusted McDonnell Douglas CF-18 Hornet fighter for a training run before a planned air show at the Lethbridge County Airport. As the weather conditions were favorable, Bews chose to perform the high alpha maneuver for the practice. The maneuver is a common trick for the Hornet, in which the aircraft flies at its lowest possible forward speed using a mix of engine power and an extreme angle of attack, and then resumes routine flight using full power and afterburn to climb back up. However, things soon went horribly wrong that fateful day. Suddenly, the demo Hornet experienced a loss of thrust from one of its engines while flying 300 feet above ground level. In footage captured both in video and photography by many civilian onlookers and photographers, Bews can be seen swinging the rudder and ailerons to try and save the jet. Still, it was to no avail. As the Hornet tilts to the right, the aircraft does not respond, and Bews has no choice but to eject. Ejection. The state-of-the-art ejection seat in the Hornet calculated the aircraft's orientation, altitude, and speed, sending Bews to the opposite side. The pilot then set off his parachute mere seconds before the CF-18 plunged to the ground, narrowly missing getting hit by the plane, which crashed and exploded nose first in a massive fireball. The ejection went smoothly, with a brisk wind pushing the pilot away from the wreckage. However, the parachute shroud lines became entangled in his leg upon landing, and before it could be released, the parachute re-inflated and dragged the pilot for several yards. At the same time, members of the Skyhawk parachute demonstration team chased the unconscious pilot in a vehicle, finally catching up with the parachute, releasing it, and immediately performing first aid on Bews. Thankfully, the pilot's injuries were not serious, and he recovered quickly. Investigation. As soon as fire and police departments cordoned off the area of impact, an official investigation carried out by the Canadian military and Department of Transport officials was launched. More than 2 years later, near the end of 2012, Royal Canadian Air Force investigators released the results of the thorough analysis of the spectacular jet crash. According to the report, a number of factors contributed to the crash, but pointed explicitly at the CF-18's right engine, concluding that the incident, quote, was likely the result of a stuck ratio boost piston in the right engine main fuel control that prevented the engine from advancing above flight idle when maximum afterburner was selected. This imbalance between the right and left engines caused Bews's aircraft to depart a controlled flight, and the jet could not be recovered due to the low altitude it was flying at. Captain Bews, who later became a flight instructor, also provided a statement on the incident. According to the pilot, he knew right away that something was wrong during the ominous flight. And with the jet not acting as it was supposed to, Bews was suddenly not in control anymore. The pilot claimed that after wrestling with the CF-18 for a few seconds, he believed the aircraft was about to spiral towards the ground and knew what to do. Quote, "I knew my only chance of survival was to pull the ejection handle." As a result of the crash and the ensuing investigation, the Royal Canadian Air Force issued several recommendations with measures to avoid similar incidents in the future, as well as many improvements to its airshow training program. The top officials also announced an expedited program to upgrade all the main fuel controls of Canada's available CF-18s. Delayed replacements. Despite the supposed urgency, the Royal Canadian Air Force had yet to replace an engine part that caused the Hornet to malfunction more than 5 years after the incident. Running so far behind schedule, the expected completion date to replace all main fuel controls was moved to March of 2018. Continued delays in completing flight safety reports and implementing preventative measures are recurring issues for the Royal Canadian Air Force. Canada's CF-18 fleet, edging closer and closer to the end of its lifespan, was initially slated to retire in 2020. However, the Conservative government cancelled such plans in recent years amid civilian complaints regarding the cost, as well as budgetary secrecy. According to Joanna Quinney, spokeswoman for Defense Minister Rob Nicholson, the CF-18 jets are an essential component of the Air Force, stating, quote, "Our current fleet of CF-18s is fully capable of fulfilling a variety of mission requirements, such as patrol and air-to-air interception." With a replacement seemingly a decade away, the government then announced a $400 million budget to upgrade the Hornets and keep them aloft until 2025. 12 years later. Despite many delays and obstacles, the aging CF-18s will eventually be retired, and incidents like the one Bews had to endure will hopefully be avoided. In March of 2022, almost 12 years after the summer 2010 incident that nearly cost Bews his life, and after a 5-year deliberation, the Canadian government announced the selection of the Lockheed Martin F-35 Lightning II as the replacement of the aging CF-18 Hornet. The country had 2 final contenders for the bid: the F-35 all-weather stealth multi-role combat aircraft and the Swedish JAS-39 Gripen multi-role fighter aircraft. But despite the fierce competition, the Canadian officials chose the former after flying hour costs were successfully cut. The decision to purchase 88 advanced fighter jets for the Royal Canadian Air Force will further the growth of the Canadian aerospace and defense sector for decades to come. This procurement is the most significant investment the Air Force has made in more than 30 years. In fact, the F-35 is intended to become the cornerstone of NATO and all United States allied air power, and is expected to operate well into the 2070s. According to a statement from the official Canada website, the purchase of the aircraft will ensure the nation continues to be well equipped to defend North America from any threats, despite the costly investment. The acquisition will also ensure that Canada continues to meet all NATO and NORAD obligations well into the future. As Canada's Minister of Public Services and Procurement, Philomena Tassi, concluded, quote, "This announcement marks another important milestone in Canada's competitive process to purchase modern fighter jets for the Royal Canadian Air Force. Canadians take great pride in their armed forces, and it is important to make sure that they have what they need to keep Canada safe and secure." Thank you for watching Dark Footage. Make sure to hit the like button if you enjoyed this video, and don't forget to share it with someone who might like it. And for more videos about incredibly unlikely situations, as well as military history's most extraordinary feats, subscribe to this and all our Dark Documentaries channels. Stay tuned.